Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Limitless Living with Gunjani Patel. I am so excited you are here. Take two. We are back with this amazing, amazing episode. And today I have a very special guest, my husband, who is joining us, Amit Oza, for this beautiful episode. As a lot of you know, if this is your first time to our channel, please feel free to subscribe, like us, comment with us, and stay with us because we have so much amazing things that we are going to talk about today. And I'm so glad that you are joining us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're new to my world, hi, I'm Gunjani Patel, and I am a manifestation and success coach with a focus on transformation and neuroscience. And I'm so glad that you are here joining us, whether you're in a relationship, whether you are wanting to improve your relationship, or whether you want to find a relationship that works for you. This is the episode just for you. And stay tuned till the end. I would love to answer all your questions. I'm so excited to be here, bringing my husband and having this conversation with him. This is the very first time he's live on all the socials. So welcome, Amit. I am so happy and
Thank
excited to be doing
you.
this with you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is definitely exciting. Thank you for anybody that doesn't know me. My name is Amit. I'm Gunjli's husband, our best friend. Some of you might know me as a personal chef, so the joke is inside.
I
So
manifested
yeah.
that. We're going to talk about
Uh,
that.
yep.
But thank you, thank you, thank you so much for it. So, where do we begin? I know that we have been kind of wanting to do this for a bit. I have been
Yeah.
wanting. I have to say, I secretly manifested this.
I know you've been
But
wanting.
I think we should start way at the top, like way in the beginning, right?
Yeah. Way at the
As
beginning.
in where we started. Because this week I was actually having a very interesting conversation with one of my clients, right? And the conversation was, what does marriage mean to you? What does
Mhm.
commitment mean to you? Right?
Absolutely.
And you'll be in different areas of your life, whether you are, attracting someone or whether you are in a marriage or a relationship already, where it's a little crunchy, this episode is really going to help you. And I want you to comment in when you get a chance because I come back and look at all the comments. But in the beginning of our marriage, this is a conversation that we actually really had. So we should start. I'll go a little bit about where I was at when I met you and what was happening,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
people
Go ahead.
people get a perspective and context of where we were when we
Hmm.
met each other, right?
Yeah.
So I had been married once before. I was divorced once before. I got married when I had no business getting married. My family told me, and it ended up being a told you so situation. And I was divorced. Now I completely have healed about it, so I can talk about it up and open, and there is no shame, no judgment towards myself about it. But that was a very shameful moment for my family, where in my family, I was like the first person to get a divorce. Nothing to be proud of, but now looking back, I truly am glad that I did that because if I wouldn't, I would have been in a miserable marriage, traumatizing myself every day. And I don't even think I would have been here to talk about this. It was that bad.
Yeah.
So it got to a point where my mom was just like, I don't like seeing you this miserable. It's okay if
Mhm.
you get a divorced. And that is a permission that I needed, not from her, but to myself that
To
yes, it's
yourself.
okay to
Yeah.
not be so miserable and
Absolutely.
suffering, right? And
Mhm.
then fast forward 10 years, I was on and off my journey of, finding the right men, getting clear.
Mhm.
Because I was a therapist, I was treating couples, I was helping others, but I wasn't as clear about my own life. Sometimes we're so close
Yeah.
to our own blind spots that we don't
Exactly.
realize when it comes to our own life what we're doing, right? And
Yeah, because
I
I think there's
dated
also
every
the transitional period as well. Like, it's like maybe professionally you're not there yet, like depending on where you are, and then your relationship, like you sort of picture exactly what you want, but then it doesn't align exactly how it should be. So
100%,
so yeah, I didn't
100%. So
mean
I
to
was
cut you.
dating
Yeah.
men, I was doing trial and error, and then learning the hard way. I would
Yeah.
absolutely invite you to not do that. Hire someone. It was my hyper, independence trauma response where I was like, I can do it all on my own. I'm the therapist. I don't need anyone. And one of my coaches once told me that. He's like, the most successful and wealthiest people, they hire people to collapse time and invest in themselves when I didn't believe in investing myself because I had all this money wounding around. Why would I spend, money on myself versus, if I can do it all on my own? So I had to work through a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I was in a relationship with people, and then this is where it didn't click, where I moved back to India. I went through a very bad breakup, being codependent, being a people pleaser, you know, in a relationship with someone who absolutely was struggling with alcoholism at that point. So we almost made it worse for each other as opposed to making each other better. So I learned from that, and I told myself, I was like, I want to marry someone, I want to be with someone who can inspire me to be a better version of me.
Right.
And I got very clear on that. And I tell a lot of my clients when they first come to work with me, it's like, get clear on what marriage means to you, get clear on what commitment means to you, get clear on who you are attracting, get clear on becoming a secure version of yourself. And those are all the things that I worked on, because this is what happens. What I've seen in relationships is we get into marriages to become more secure, more loving, more kind version of ourselves. But unfortunately, we come in with all our wounding, our parental wounding, his baggage, her baggage, our baggage. And
Mhm.
as a result, we keep repeating those same
The
things in
same.
the relationships over and over if we don't work on ourselves. And then we expect different things. So we have to work on our baggage part, and we have to work on us individually. So I wanted someone as a part of my clarity. I make my clients like, I got a very clear list of all the things I wanted in a man, and 10 years of all the things. I'm like, you know what, this is what I want, this I'm not tolerate, this is what is non-negotiable, this is what I'm not going to be okay with. And I started getting to a point where I was just like, oh my god, I'm having the time of my life. I had my private practice, I owned my home, I was living in
Mhm.
Florida, I was running a group practice. I mean, it was awesome. And then I found myself falling for someone who I knew was absolutely not the right person for me. I knew they were not the right person for me, but yet once again I found myself on the floor, fetal position, crying. And I said to myself, if that ever happens with this man, I'm going to be in therapy, because something is wrong and something I'm not able to see in myself. So I'm going to work on that. And literally, I was on my therapist chair doing EMDR session for 3 hours straight, and all the things that I now teach people. And within 10 days, you showed up. Oh.
Oh, I.
So let's talk about that. How did you show
Yeah.
up? Tell me all about your experience.
Yeah, so my showing up, yeah, I mean, when you're talking about your own little background,
Yeah.
it's almost similar, right? Like, I mean, I came to America like what, 25 years ago. I was an extremely young 20-year-old dude, going to college, and basically after that, I had a tragedy. My father passed away, and actually my journey sort of started from there. I just,
Mm.
overnight I just became extremely mature, and not that I was immature or anything, but
Of
the
course, our brain is still
responsibility and all
developing
that.
till we're 27 years
So
old. So you were immature, and
exactly,
that's
and not
okay.
knowing anybody in this place, it was extremely difficult to, like, well,
Of
learn
course.
what grieving is. Not that I have not seen death before, but this was somebody that was my role model, my hero, and not being able to see that, how it
Yeah.
happened or anything.
Right.
So, out of nowhere, I had a very nice lady that was my advisor at university. It's like, hey, I mean, you know what? I mean, I see that you're way off and all that. Like, why don't you go through, counseling? And I'm like, what's counseling? I had no clue
We grew
about
up in a family
counseling.
where we didn't believe in mental health.
Exactly. So it's like, oh, you just talk about your feelings, just anything. And I'm like, well, why do I need to talk to somebody about my feelings? Like, my feelings are mine. And if I do need to share it to anybody, then it would be my closest friends or my family or something. But I was very open minded. So that was one very good thing. And I literally went, and met my counselor, and the journey started from there. So that was my first step towards learning how to, work on yourself, like that entire process, right? And believe me, at the very beginning, I didn't like her. I'm like, what am I doing here? Can I meet someone else? She's like, yeah, absolutely, you can go. There is someone else as well. And, but I was very persistent because at the same time, I hated, but I still
That is your
wanted
nature, and I love that
her,
so much.
right?
You were very
Yeah,
persistent, even
yeah,
trying to
thank
get
you.
me. So,
So the journey started there, and then after school, of course, and then coming back on the relationship side, I had met my ex, during my university years, and so it was off and on, dating and stuff, and then finally, we got married and it started, and then within like 3 years of that time, the marriage fell apart, basically, right? And after that happened, it's not like you wake up and you're like, well, now, I'm divorced, I'm single, now I'm going to do this. To me, that was also another step in that journey, which is like, okay, so now that I am divorced and I didn't have pressure like I had to please somebody to make them happy, or I felt shame. I didn't feel shame. And maybe that was because of the previous process that was already done. Um, but at the same time, I was like, I need to do counseling. I need to go there. And, talk therapy, as much as it helps, there are also a lot more other processes there that I would definitely suggest you seek out. Like Gunshi mentioned, EMDR as well as one of them. It's very highly effective. And just work on yourself, whether that's working out, that's whether doing yoga, whether you're practicing any breathing techniques, things like that. So, and somebody tells me, it's like, what is breathing? Like, I breathe every day, you know. That's absolutely true. We have to breathe
That
every
came later,
day.
though. That came later for you because even when I was
It
doing
did.
all that
I
work,
was just, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm just trying to bring up points like, how people can actually help themselves, with these avenues
100%.
or options that they might have. So
Right,
I went and did that. And at that point, I literally realized that, if we're in a relationship, it's very easy to point fingers because of him, because of her. This is exactly what happened. And to a certain point, I was like, I totally believed like this is exactly not my fault. And to realize now I also have to take accountability because look, you can't form a relationship with yourself. You can obviously, but you also need the other person. That's why it's called a relationship, a partnership or something.
right.
And it
Partnership.
takes two to tango, right? And
Absolutely.
it also then becomes relevant, take some accountability as well, right? So that was an eye opener for me. And but after that process, which is still a process to this day, it's like, okay, if I sit in a dark room, how am I picturing myself? How am I picturing, let's say, if I'm seeking another path? And what have I learned from this previous relationship? I think that was more a work for me. And of
Yes.
course, like I like you talk about manifestation, right? At that point, I had zero clue about manifestation.
Oh, we
I
know.
mean, of course, I always believed in like the spiritual higher power. I guess it comes with our culture as well, where like it's intuned in us. So you feel that. You talk to maybe your elders, etc. Culturally, it's like we're very spiritual. So you're like, okay, you're just sitting there and you're daydreaming all of a sudden. But it's actually kind of not daydreaming, it's more like a manifestation. It's like, oh man, I want my partner to be like this. This is how exactly what I want. And not want, but this is also I'm going to do for her
That.
or him, right? So all these things have to come into place. Now, jumping forward to how I met you, obviously
Right.
this is now the culmination of all these things that I'm working or I was working on at that time. And now I know exactly what I want in my partner. All I have to
Right.
do now is just do the work. And it's
Right.
not actually a hard work because this work that was done previously is only going to attract people that you're manifesting. So that
100%.
frequency, that energy, right? The energy that you go into, or let's say in a room or something, it is exactly what somebody is going to give. If you go with a negative energy, what do you expect? You get negative energy. If you come in a room full of smiles, laugh, what do you get? You get laughs, and it's fine. So this is just the basic thing of it. And yeah, I'm gonna stop there. Let's start the journey from when I
It,
met
it
you.
really makes my heart so full that you talk like this now. When we met, you never used to talk like this. This was not
I
even
mean,
in your
I'm
vocabulary.
very
You
private,
were
like
embodied that, but now you have
yeah,
vocabulary for it. Because,
yeah,
and one of the reasons why I married you was just this, was
yeah,
I was very clear on what I was not okay with. I was very clear about
Absolutely.
what was non-negotiable for me, right? When I
Yeah.
met you, you were a breath of fresh air. You were so positive all the time. Like I remember we had time difference. I was in Florida. I would literally
Yeah.
like go to my office and get ready, but I would like wait to talk to you every day because it was
Same.
just such a breath of fresh air to start my day like that. And back then I was not this positive in my moments.
No, I mean it's not
And
entirely true. For me it was more
actually I
like,
was, but yeah.
yeah, you're always full of life, so that's not a question at all. Yeah, we all have good days, bad days. So for me,
Right.
it's interesting you mentioned. It's like we have the time difference. So I wake up and I'm going to work, and that entire drive, like maybe half an hour, that's like my morning call to you. Hey, and then
Right.
I remember very well that one day I think you locked yourself out or something. I don't know
Yeah.
how you can lock
Yeah.
yourself
That
out,
whole
but of
story.
course you can. So
We'll table
yeah,
for
so
later.
for me at that point, like just seeing how you're just huffing and puffing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's
Anxious
totally
was my
cool.
pattern.
So
So
to
the
me,
thing
that was
is,
fun. Yeah,
that's true. Like to you, you were just like, okay, and I needed that.
it's
And
fine. It's
it was
okay if
just
you
like,
don't get that.
before that, the whole time I used to
Yeah,
get so jealous that, or not jealous, envious that my friends were getting married all over the place, that I was
yeah,
going to be the last one left behind. Like I manifested, like, I'm not looking, but I was desperately looking, and
hmm,
all those things, right? Before that therapy appointment that I talked about. And I was just
yeah,
like, and when I started working on myself, it was like I was having the time of my life. I was dating myself. I was having fun, and that's where you were on. And I always tell the ladies, always that choose a man that chooses you. Choose a man that
yeah,
makes an effort.
absolutely.
And again,
Hmm.
sometimes you are in the relationship. So if you're watching this episode while being in the relationship, you can still start by choosing you most of the time,
Absolutely.
and we're going to jump
Yeah,
into that. So
yeah,
when we met each other, we were like, so every relationship, right, goes through a honeymoon phase. Like we are just, oh wow, yay, woo, all this. We
hmm,
don't see anything else but just what we want to see, right? And there is a whole
correct.
complexity, and I teach about this in my relationship class and stuff. But then every relationship also goes through when we start moving towards connection, when we start moving towards,
Yeah,
like
a
in
phase.
marriages, because in India, a lot of us get married and then we get to know our partner, right? And that's
Yeah,
okay
yeah,
too. And the conflict phase starts when you are from 2 months to 20 years. And that's when
hmm,
I notice most of the couples digress, they fall apart,
yeah,
they almost, what we call virtual divorce. We lose connection, we lose intimacy. So
with
I
each
would
other.
actually like to talk about that, because when I met you, I
Yeah,
was like, oh my god, like we gave ourselves 1 year and we told ourselves that in 1 year,
yeah.
let's
Let's give it a
see
try.
each other through the whole season. We need to see all the things, we need to get through all the conflict phase, all the things, right?
Yeah,
And to see that if we're compatible for each other, because if we're not, then I
exactly.
don't want to commit to someone. Like this time I had made a promise to myself that the only time that I would leave this relationship, and I wanted to be with someone who picked me, I wanted to be with someone who was very secure in himself, I wanted to be with someone who was very emotionally available, I wanted to be with someone who knew how to navigate challenges by not blaming and complaining, but actually being my
Doing
partner.
the work.
And we
Yeah,
weren't all of that in the beginning. Like it took life and skills and
yeah,
us to figure that
absolutely.
out together, and coaching.
Hmm.
But I think one of the things that we started out was you were open minded.
Yeah, I think we both
I
had
was
that
all those things.
foundation.
I was
Yeah,
all those things, because most of the time
yeah.
ladies will tell me, like, Gunjani, Amit is like this. No, Amit is like this because I am the way I am. Right? We are partner. We mirror
we
each other.
we we are a mirror to
We
each other. Like we are a mirror
100%.
to each other.
And
Now, of course, it's like in any relationship, like when you come into that relationship, like you bring your qualities, I bring my qualities. So then there is the next level. It's like now, how can we actually make that better for us, not just individually, right? Because like I talk about this foundation that we had. We were both married previously, both divorced. So we had some lessons that we learned from there. Now, moving into this side, in this new relationship, we kind of knew exactly what we wanted. Like I wanted somebody. It's like, hey, you know what? I would really want somebody just to keep me on my toes. I love my comfort and all that, but once in a while, I'm like, just for a little jolt would be nice, right? So,
I gave you a lot
and
of
then the
jokes,
thing,
unfortunately. And I wanted someone who was like, oh,
No,
centered Ice Cube because I was the fire in the
exactly. So
relationship.
I
Because
think we
I knew that
complemented
we
each
couldn't have
other there.
fire. I knew that no matter
Yeah,
what, you were just so rooted, so grounded,
yeah.
so secure. You were like the yin to my yang, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And it's not like always just that like we can flip those roles like in no time basically, right? Like
Right.
then you want some yin on your side and then I'm like this doesn't, right? So and so but that's the understanding that relationship actually comes into play. And it's like how are you developing that? How are you nurturing that? Because having a conflict is like sure, that's your fault. You do it, and then it escalates into something that you didn't really want.
So let's
The
talk
other,
about that actually for
yeah,
our
yeah,
relationship,
mhm,
what we did, right? Like because we also ended up even after marriage, we got married, everything was great. Okay, I knew wanted to be with him. Like I had standards, and I want all of
yeah,
you to create your relationship standards. Like every year at the end of
yeah,
December, we sit down and we talk about what is our relationship standard for this next year. What are we going to work on? What do we want out of this relationship? What are three qualities that we are developing individually and we're doing together, right? Like those are like
yeah.
I really think like we
Like
go to
in,
work, we learn, like we go to school, we learn skills, we make money, and we keep going to work to keep making money. We don't just say, I'm just gonna come for one day out of the year and pay me. I think unfortunately our relationship standard is that I'll just show up the way I keep showing up, change nothing, heal nothing, and then I want you to be different. And that
well,
didn't work for us, right? It
yeah,
doesn't
it's
work for
not even
anyone.
just showing up. It's just like I'm just there and I'm existing in this relationship. And I found
Being the
myself
same
like in
person
like,
I was as my
yeah,
7-year-old wounded inner child. That doesn't
exactly,
work.
yeah. And so the point that you make, it's a very good point. It's like okay, it's like we go to work, right? And you have goals there, like whether it's individual goals, whether it's team goals or something. And I think relationship should also be treated as such. Like every year you say it's like let's sit down, let's talk about it. Like where are we lacking? Like, do we need to travel a lot? Do we need to like spend less on grocery or something? Do we need to change bed sheets or whatever? Those are actually real life things.
Right.
And sometimes people don't talk about that because it's where
Sometimes,
it's
all
like
the time, 95% of the time, I don't
yeah.
see people talking
I
about
mean, I don't
it.
want to make judgments there, but like just to make an
But I
example, it's
see
like
it. You don't see it. I see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like also if she's doing it, then why am I doing it? It's like I'll give you an example, like doing dishes, for example. If you're doing dishes 5 days a week, is it really bad if one day out of that week I say, Gunjot, like don't do dishes today. I'm just gonna take care of it. Like that would be appreciated, right? And so those are the things that like people can talk about in relationship, like real things. And to address is much better than to just let it simmer there because once it explodes, then it's
So I want to talk about that for a
yeah,
second. Hold on, for us, because
yeah.
you're like ahead of time, like what we do now. This is not how people show up, right? We
No,
worked
no,
a
I was just
lot to
making an
be
example.
here
Yeah,
on this
yeah,
space, right? So our
yeah,
conflict phase was when we got in on conflict phase. I moved in with him. I gave a, like that was a discussion we had, like if I'm
yeah.
what whether he was going to move to California or I was going to move here and all that, right? So when I moved in and we got married, we were having fun and our conflict phase started. Official conflict
Yep.
phase beginning. And what did that look
Yeah.
like? I'll take responsibility for all the things that I was doing and then what I changed. And then I want you to share with me what you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
going through because
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
don't want to speak for you, right?
I mean, I think it
So in
was
that
both our
phase,
responsibility.
but back then we didn't know that, right? We were like,
Yeah,
you,
I
you,
know.
you. And it was rough. It was rough. So we were in conflict phase after officially in the first 3 years, almost like in the first 3 years of life when Avik was
At
born,
least, yeah.
is when
Before,
I
yeah.
really became aware of it. Before that, I was just doing all the things like what I was doing. I was putting myself last. I had made Avik and my mother-in-law my entire world because my mother-in-law has MS and she struggles with disability. And thus, it was almost like she had recently moved to Tanzania, from Tanzania to America. We had
So,
moved her here, and it was a big life change. Like it was
yeah.
marriage was all I wanted. A kid, and even manifesting Avik was a whole thing because we were going through so much stress that we weren't getting pregnant for the longest time, and we were trying and the whole thing. And I was just like, oh my God, am I done? Like, is fertility going to be hard for me? This, that, like all my self-limiting beliefs
Hmm.
were coming up, right? And
Yeah.
I was just, I made, then Avik was born. I made Avik my entire life. I literally, no putting on my own mask. I was just like showing up to this relationship, hardly showing up to, like, not showing up for myself at all, but hardly showing up for
Yeah.
the marriage, right? Like, you were just existing. You were this roommate just sleeping next to me, and we were hardly talking. Like, I was working back then, you were working. We had recently moved
Yeah,
into a
I think
home that we had
you're absolutely
manifested.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
it was such a it's such a beautiful home. We had manifested it from an
Yeah.
apartment that we were living in a very small space. uh, but we had all the things, and yet we were not happy,
We were
yet we
lacking.
were
Yes.
not satisfied,
Yeah.
yet we were just lacking. We were
So
very
in that
unpleasant with each
phase,
other.
so
Hold on,
in
let me
that
finish my
phase,
thought, otherwise I'll forget.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I was literally showing up for everybody, and I was so resentful that I was showing up for
Towards yeah.
everybody. And I just felt so angry that, and even shame, like some of myself, like, why did I marry once again? Like, why did I, why did I, like, if I go,
Get
I
in
should get a
get into
divorce. And
trouble.
that was one of the reasons where I'm like, oh my God, like it literally, two things switched for me back then, because I was like, oh my God, I'm done with this marriage. Like, this marriage is too hard. I am done. And then I would go through the whole shame. Like, do I want to put my family through this? I made a commitment. Like, why did I make this mistake? Like, I was full victim mode back then.
Mhm.
And I didn't even realize that I was self-pitying. I was just done. I had gained so much weight. I had let myself go. I was going through postpartum depression and
Depression.
anxiety.
Yeah.
And life was hard, but I was afraid to ask for help. There was shame and insecurity to ask for support. There was, oh, this is like, I was like, why am I? And I was trying to do all of this by myself. It was rough.
Yeah. And see, in my head, like this is now my, like you said, like, we just existed. Like, so my existing was like balancing these two acts. Like, one part is my wife, then the other part, let's say, is my other maternal family. And I'm like, okay, so
Oh, that
why
part.
are
And my
they?
sister-in-laws, I did not get along with. I mean, it was
Yeah.
rough. It was
So to
rough.
me, that was difficult. It's like, I'm a person that really wants to avoid conflicts any kind, right? And so I'm trying to balance this out. And I also want everybody to coexist, which is very difficult because there's
Yep.
these two parties, they're in entirely different planets, different
Right.
places, and
Right.
I'm trying to fix that. So for me, it was just like I would rather fix it. Now, while doing it, I am also like, well, you know what? If you can't stand up for yourself, then I don't know what to do. So for
And you
me,
used to
I
tell me
think,
all the time, stand up for
yeah,
yourself, stand up for
yeah.
yourself, like all the
And I
time.
and I and I
Yeah.
totally like I totally should have supported you there, right? And I'm like, you know what? We got this.
But
Now,
actually, in that moment, let's talk about the yin yang balance, and
yeah,
that's something that I teach. It's like in the Western world, we call it anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. The way we attach to our caregivers is how we show up in our adult relationships, and the complaints that we have with our parents are the complaints that we're going to have in our relationship or at work, right? Like this.
yeah,
And in the Eastern world, we call it yin yang imbalance. So yin energy is this feminine energy, divine feminine, and
yeah.
yang
It's the
energy is
Shiv
this
Shakti,
masculine within all of us, like the Shiv and the Shakti. Irrespective of our genders, we all have
correct.
the Shiv and Shakti within all of us, the balance of that yin and yang. My yin back then was so wounded that it was like people pleasing. I was aggressive. I was critical with you. I
Yeah,
was I was showing up to others like with suppressed voice, like I couldn't speak up and set healthy boundaries. I didn't know how to communicate. Like I would say stuff to people and then they would just react a certain way, and it was
yeah. It
just
just comes out
it was the
very,
opposite
very
of
aggressive.
manifesting.
Yeah, and for me, I was just like, you know what? I can't
Speak
have two
up.
words with you. I can't have
Yeah.
two words with you without actually then getting into that escalation, right? So I think that also then contributed to like the trust issues as well, and I
100%.
think I
100%.
should also apologize to you for the trust issues that I probably created in that, and because I was this one person that you were like, no matter what, like no matter what fights we get into, he's somebody that I can literally trust. And for me to sort of break that trust, even for me was a shock, you know,
Mm,
and for that I
I love
definitely
you so
apologize.
much.
And now, so apologizing is one thing. Now, how do we do this work, right? And I think after we made the move, and now we have Avik in our life, like we had this little baby, now we have to raise him up. And
And
I
even then,
think,
we were like literally
yeah,
fighting
oh yeah,
every week, every 2 3 days. We were
absolutely,
fighting about the same things over and over.
same thing.
And
Yeah.
in couples coaching, I teach people it's like you're not fighting to be right. You're that I learned later through so
Yeah.
many of our fight, through that distrust,
Yeah.
through that. What are we doing in this relationship, right? And then
Hmm.
I came back.
And
I
then
still
we're just
remember
going
that
around
day
circles.
very clearly
Yeah.
that I dropped Avik off and I was like, Amit was at work, so he was working and he was working from home back then because it was I think 2019,
Yeah.
and I was
Just
like, Amit,
pre-COVID.
I dropped off Avik. This is a big deal because I dropped him off to daycare the 2 years. I was like completely like just attached to him. We didn't have any family here helping us with him, all the things like dysfunction and distress all over the place, and us not knowing how to navigate those big emotions, right? So we were just projecting on each other. And I remember I came back and I was literally bawling in the car 1 hour before I came to you. And I literally got on social media and I saw this one woman. She was 30 years old, this beautiful, amazing almond eyes. I still remember that post. And she had died by suicide. Trigger
Hmm.
warning for some of you. And that opened my eyes. That really, I was like, that could be me. This is how I feel right now. I want to escape my problems. I want to run away. I'm not happy. I got married. I wanted children. I have the home I want, but I'm not happy. Something is missing. This relationship is missing. You
Is
are
missing.
missing. The people we married were missing, and
Yep.
something needs to change. So I really remember telling you that I saw this certification course that I wanted to take, and that meant that I need to heal myself and I need to find myself again. And
Yeah.
I know it's cost this much and that much. And you were like, okay, that was going to be a financial
No,
pinch at
but
that
see,
time.
when we had that conversation, for me, I'm like, okay, so she realizes this, and guess what? I have this bulb lighting up in my brain, and I'm like, holy crap, and I'm realizing it's like, even though we're in this relationship like these people 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, now we're realizing it's like, okay, these people have been forgotten. We need to bring them back, you know. And so when you say that you want to pursue this thing, I was like, yep, let's do it.
Yeah.
If this is what's going to help you, this is what's going to help me because it's contributing towards this relationship,
You
right?
say this now, but you
You
didn't
know,
say that back then.
well, I didn't, but in my
But you
brain, right?
realized it. You had
Yeah,
that
in my
awareness,
brain, it's like,
100%.
I'm
You
like, okay,
totally
well, this
supported
is,
me in that.
yeah, because
Yeah.
it,
You were
it
like, if you
also
want to do
was,
this and it makes you
yeah,
happy, go do it.
I will support
We'll
you.
figure it out. You
Absolutely.
100% said that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And thank
yeah,
you for that. That meant so much because I think that changed
yeah.
the trajectory of how we are showing up now, right? So,
Yeah, and I think, on this foundation, like the point of support, I think when you support your partner, I mean, I think it's our duty to do, right? It's for me, it's just one fundamental. It's like if you love something, then you're willing to die for it, like pretty much, right? Like not die, but like fight for it,
you
maybe.
sound like Shah Rukh Khan now.
I don't know.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, but just the foundation for it. It's
No,
like,
to me, love is important,
let's
but
say
love is
you
not
love your
all that
family. I'll
sustains
give
a
you an
relationship.
example. Yeah, like I'll give you an
Because
example. Like we
that
all
love
say
is
we
not
love our
enough.
family. Yeah, but love, respect, all of those. So I'm just saying love, but it engulfs all these things, right? Now, you can do anything for your family. You'll stand up for them.
Yeah,
You'll be there when they need you, right? So
right.
so that's the point that I'm trying to make. If you love something, then you're willing to do anything, whether it's our
So
closest
love
friends.
means
Yeah,
mutual support, mutual
mutual
respect,
support.
mutual
Exactly. Yeah,
consideration,
respect for each other.
mutual, respect for
Yeah,
each other. Yeah, but we didn't respect
exactly.
ourselves. Like my yin was so wounded
Exactly. Yeah,
that I didn't respect myself. Why would you respect me? Manifestation is we attract more of who we are, not what we want. And
exactly. Yep.
I didn't respect myself. I kept betraying myself. I kept abandoning myself. I was people pleasing to make other people happy. And
Same.
you
Mhm.
reflect that back to me. And that was
Yep.
rough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And what were
I
you
had
doing?
the
Like you
heavy.
were fearful of conflict. You were
Well, people pleasing
You
as
would
well.
hide, you were
Yep.
people pleasing, you were
People
suppressing your
pleasing as
emotions,
well.
and we
Yep.
weren't emotionally intelligent or
Over
talking about
giving,
emotions
or
now.
it's like, yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
So we were doing all of that,
Hmm.
and taking that certification and going on this healing journey changed my life, like 3 months. And even then, like, like I was mentioning earlier, like relationship is full on. We have to keep working on it. Even after I did
It's
that
daily
course, did
work.
that work, it was nervous system regulation. It was like releasing all these years worth of anger, resentment, trauma,
Yeah.
stress, right? Like all the emotional patterns that I felt in the relationship. I felt so much doubt if this relationship was going to work or not. I felt so much resentment and anger for not being able to stand up for myself that I
Correct.
was unconsciously modeling my mom once again, what I had seen, unfortunately. And I promised myself that I wouldn't do that. And yet, unconsciously, I was just living
It's still there.
that relationship, people pleasing, go over giving, like, don't say anything to your in laws, don't say anything at all. And inside, all of that was
You're
brewing.
boiling.
Inside, I couldn't set boundaries. Inside, I couldn't say no. Instead, I couldn't say my needs matter and I matter. And have
Well, you
that
suppress
courage
your
and
emotions now.
boldness. 100%. And doing all that work literally, like, changed how we both showed up to the relationship. Like I used to still get angry, I used to still get mad because that was my wounded yang, and I
Mhm.
used to be, and you would be then standing up for yourself and saying, don't, like you would start yelling and screaming because we were both, just really
Well,
coming from our
yeah, because I
wounding.
mean, there's an
And then we were
imbalance that is
modeling
being
Avik
created.
that.
Yeah, so that,
And
you
that's
know,
when we were like, okay,
I
we
think that
gotta we
broke the
gotta do
camel's
better.
back, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
so here we are fighting at each other like alligators, whatever. And there is this little baby just crawling around, and we're like, we would take a step back. We're like, okay, we need to chill now because he can hear us because he would look at us, even though he wouldn't talk anything back. And we're like, this has to stop, you
Yes.
know. And how do we stop that? So I'll also give you an example. I used to be a crazy smoker. I used to
Oh,
smoke cigarettes, and and this is how it started. Like I used to go out, smoke, come back, wash myself, and then carry this baby. And one day, I think I was wearing a sweater or something, a hoodie, and that thing just reeked, like literally reeked. And I'm like, this baby that I'm carrying now is smelling this entire third party smoke from this hoodie, and it is not fair. Like I'm gonna kill this baby. Not only I'm gonna kill myself, but this baby is gonna die from me. I think that was an eye opener. And from then onwards, I'm like, okay, this has to stop. And I think that also changed a lot of things. Like just being with Avik, raising him up at that point. And I think that was the time COVID just started. So it gave us that time of like literally just staying inside the home and be able to bond on so many things. I think for us, that was probably the moment that we kind of needed that time. And I think that really helped us like sort of, mature in the relationship, make it healthy, and also bring that respect and the trust back, that like, okay, you
100%.
know what, it's us, we need to model this to this kid that is growing up now because he sees us. And I think that trust right there was something, was like, okay, just seeing that kid, one time I just
So
saw him, he was, yeah, to me that was the
So before that, I want to kind of give a back end of this because you make it sound so great, and yeah, it just happened. It didn't just happen. For a
well, it
year
didn't,
and a
I'm just
half
making
before
it
that,
shorter.
in the back end, what I was doing, in the back end,
Yeah.
what I was doing, and what I like I said, I take
Yeah.
100% responsibility for my emotional frequency, for my action frequency, for
Yeah.
my thought and belief frequency. In the back end, while he expresses this amazing rosy picture, how it just voila, we changed. That's not what happened a year and a half before that.
Oh.
Before that, I used to
I'm
nag
mindful
him
of
to
time.
death. I used to control him in terms of, now I can say that was what control looked like. Like I used to make him, please don't smoke, please don't smoke. I tried all kinds of,
Oh,
you
there
should
was
not
no
smoke,
please.
you should
There
not
was
do
no
this.
please.
That
There
came
was no.
later, right? That came later because I was like, you need to stop smoking. You're doing this.
Yeah.
You're doing you, the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like nagging him only made him do it more, Nagging
It
him
became
only
more.
made emasculated him almost. And it almost made him do the worst, you're right? As opposed to, okay. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I was doing my healing, my work, my stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm going to just manifest this, that he makes healthy choices. My beliefs are not going to be focused on what he's not doing, but instead what I'm responsible for creating, right? And I was like, I accepted him exactly where he was. I stopped nagging. I stopped talking about it. And I'm like, one day he will come to this realization. The rosy picture that he did mention, I saw it in my vision. I saw it as my affirmations. I made them my emotional patterns. Like if he was not smoking, what would I be feeling instead? Not the need to control him, not anxious, not judging him, not being mean to him, not nagging him, not controlling him, and not trying to, impose my fears on him. Taking
Yeah.
responsibility and what can I do, because I knew I'm a powerful manifester, but what can I do to change this pattern from repeating itself? So I literally was sitting there working on myself the whole time. I accepted you where you were, because I always tell my couples, like, your acceptance list has to be much higher than your expectations list. I had much higher expectations list, and in the meantime, I was not showing up as my highest self. I was
Yeah.
not showing up as the person you met me. I was not exercising and expecting you to exercise and then for us to be healthy. So I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm going to start taking care of, and to all the women out there, and even the men that are watching, it's like you become the embodiment of the change you wish to inspire in your relationship.
Absolutely.
And your relationship would follow the lead. Unfortunately, we expect our partner to do all this stuff, and we don't show up as all the things that we expect our
Yeah.
partners to do and show up as. And then, of course, the relationship doesn't work. So I started making
Yeah.
healthy choices. I started manifesting that, you know what? Every time, Amit is very easily influenced by me. We influence each other in the best ways possible. We
Yeah.
respect each other.
No
We respect
manipulation.
each other's needs. Right? We did
Yeah.
all of that manifesting. Like I used to
Exactly.
say
But
this
like
even
the
before he became that person.
yeah, the realization for me was like, okay, why is she always nagging me? And you're absolutely right.
Mm,
That's
mm,
exactly how I
mm.
felt. This is my life. If I'm gonna die, then it's on me. Right? I'm just gonna smoke. Let me go out and smoke another one. Right? So
That,
punishing me is punishing you, right? Like that was the
thank you for
but
mentioning that, right? Like we were in
yeah,
that rough phase.
and
Yeah.
so but also I'm punishing this little baby, right? So so that realization and the whole perspective sort of just started, and I'm saying like quitting smoking was probably the best thing that ever happened. And I'm so glad. If anybody's out there, I know how difficult it can be. Please, if you can, give it your best
With
shot.
NLP, we can change that in one day.
Yeah, if you can, give it your best shot. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
smoked like my entire life, you know, since I was like 15 years old, 14 years old. So I mean, I can understand it's very difficult. Um, but if
Cancel,
you can,
cancel.
there are alternatives. Yeah, cancel, cancel.
This is who
Yeah,
this is who
cancel,
he's
cancel.
married to.
Yeah. So that's how I perceived. It's like, why is she nagging me? This is like my life, and just let me be. Like, if it's a decision, then it needs to come to me. But then the overall picture, it's like, okay, so how the ultimate goal is to make this relationship happy. The ultimate goal is to make sure that this child that I'm raising, I don't repeat the same mistakes that came from my generation.
Trauma.
I need to
Yep.
break those chains, right? Like, so those were the things that were always lingering in my head. And to some point, I think that's why you and I are together, because like that foundation that we both, or the values that we seek back then, aligned with each other, right? Like
100%.
this is
And
exactly
our,
what
our
we,
promise to each other from the get go was we'll inspire each other to be better
yeah,
each other, no matter
yeah,
what. And I know that a
absolutely.
lot of times, and I want to, like, I know I get asked this question, so I want you to answer it because it's from a male perspective. That, oh, but my husband doesn't do all this work. He's not emotionally intelligent. He's not like Amit. He is just this, that. What have you seen me do that you became this person? You weren't emotionally intelligent either, and neither was I. I'm going to take full responsibility of that.
Yeah.
Um, what changed?
Well, my change started way back then when I actually mentioned, 25 years ago when this tragedy happened. So, and I think they're asking the right question. I don't
No,
think
no,
it's
like in the relationship, most of the time
yeah.
I
I'm
hear
coming
women
back to
say,
that.
my husband is not like that. Well, you
So I'm
can't just
coming back
change
to
your
that point.
husband or your wife.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my see again, you're already pointing fingers. So right there, that's a problem. My husband is not like that. Like, how do you want
Bad.
him to be? Right? Okay. So you can't turn on off the switch. So it comes back to how individually one feels to show up in that relationship. Right? Now, emotional intelligence, you speak about that. How do you define emotional intelligence? Okay, well we can make a quick example out of that. Just I made the other time about doing dishes. My wife is doing dishes 5 days a week. If I do it once, that's emotional intelligence because you feel that your wife is just toiling all these
Empathy.
5 days,
Yes.
and so I can help out a little bit, right? So that's emotional intelligence. Or do you just want your wife to work? So there is that difference. Now you have to do some work, right? Like everybody has to do some work. We also made an example of like you show up to work every day. You're being professional. You have goals. Maybe you're leading a team. So if you're leading a team, you're leading by example. And these people look up to you, right? So all these things that we do
I want to
professionally
double click
outside.
into this. I want to double
Yeah.
click into this because you weren't this person when I started doing this work because I want to like make it very I want to unpack this a little.
Yeah.
When I started doing the work, right? When I started working on myself, when I stopped expecting, when I started clearing what I wanted in this relationship and how my beliefs, how my limiting beliefs, how my thoughts, how my emotional patterns were completely reflecting from my outside, which is you, right? A
Yeah.
lot of times women will say, my husband doesn't do the work. My wife doesn't want to do the work. He's not emotionally intelligent. She's not. You become emotionally intelligent. Emotional intelligence means you can bounce back, resilience back, even when
Exactly.
they're not showing up the way you want them to show up.
Yeah.
What is in you? What emotional patterns do you need to heal in you so that you
You
continue to
show up.
maintain the vision of what you want to see in your relationship? And
Exactly.
the balance of that yin yang. Like when you didn't show up, instead of being critical, like there are four things that couples do that tells us that I know this because we teach this in relationship coaching. If you're being critical, if you're being condemning, if you're being defensive, like if your partner is talking to you and it's like, no, that's not what happened. Oh, no, I didn't get told this. Or like passive aggressive, which you were passive aggressive and I was very aggressive. And that didn't work for
Yeah.
us. We had to
Mhm.
learn skills to be assertive. Like I remember when I was like, when you, I feel because like, I don't want to use that. Oh, this is a venting session or this is a, problem solving because I would want to solve
Yeah.
all your
I
problems.
don't
And
want
you're
to
like,
talk
I'm just
right
trying to
now. Leave me
vent,
alone.
right? Like I'm just trying to talk. Like I'm just trying to vent. I'm like, go vent to your friends. I'm like, venting is complaining for an hour. Like I'm not aware, but that was not emotionally intelligent. I had to have empathy and set my
Yeah.
boundaries. Like this venting set next time, come to me and say this is a venting session, so I can be prepared for it. Otherwise, as your
Yeah,
partner, I'm
and
gonna
that's
want to
you make a
fix
very
those
good point
problems.
there, right? Like, we experienced it. Like when I had to vent something out to you, and your answer was like, well, because
Let's fix this
like
as my
I don't want
anxious
you to fix
person.
anything. Just listen, right? Just listen. Don't fix and put like something on the cracks. I don't want that. And you're like, no, well, I don't have time to listen. You go and vent to your friends, right? And to me, that was, and it happens in every couple. And I think you need to address that as
Right.
you're in that relationship. That like, oh, I'm really sorry, dude. Like, you know what? You had
That
something to vent, and I should have at least listened.
empathy.
Even though
Instead of
I
getting
didn't like,
defensive,
yeah,
even though, yeah, go ahead, finish your thought.
yeah, even though I didn't like it, I should have still stayed there. Even though I was bored out of my life, I should have just been there, be present for you, right?
Yeah.
And to most of people, like that's what they want. They just want to be heard. They want to be
Yes.
seen.
Yes.
And when they are not being seen, that's when issues start escalating, right? So now
100%.
we will come back to this point of like, okay, why am I not like somebody else? Well, we're all different people, but at certain aspect, like we all try and do some kind of work in order to have this development, right? Self
Nah,
development is what I'm getting.
I kind of disagree with you on that one, and I'll tell you
How?
why.
Okay.
Because we are all kind of this person. You weren't this person. You became this person. Like I
No,
know
I'm
so
saying
many
we're all
marriages.
different. We're all different. Like
Agreed.
when there is the comparison of like,
Right.
well,
First of all, there shouldn't be a comparison. because
Well, that's what
comparison
I'm
is
saying.
wounded
Yeah,
yang. It's competitive.
exactly. It's
Uh,
like how come Amit is like this and somebody else is
that
not. So that's what I was trying to tell. We're
manifest
all
your
different
husband
people.
to do the same thing, and manifesting looks
Yeah.
like
So
Amit
so I
and
would.
I are very tight. Amit and I keep getting better and better every year. Amit and I, get more intimate and more connected every year. My mindset, my
So
belief pattern is that.
yeah. So I mean, it's okay to compare because the comparison can become envious rather than becoming jealous. And I don't want that. So
I think
being
inspire, I
envious,
like the
it's
word inspire better. I don't even want to
or
be envious on
inspiration.
someone. I want to be
Absolutely.
inspired by good relationships.
Inspired, yes. So that's what you should take from it, right? Like,
Right.
rather than saying, "Well, if I'm like this, then how come you're not like that?" That's not the way you should approach it. You should approach it as inspiration, something envious, And I'm like, oh man, like so again, I will come back to the heroes that you have in your lives. My hero was my father, right? I always looked up to this dude in so many ways. Even now, when I'm at this age, I can think back and look at and visualize some of the things that this guy was doing at that time. And to me, right now, it's extremely relevant to a point that it's mind blowing. So he was my hero. Now I take his teachings back and I'm like, oh man, yeah, he used to do this, right? Like he used to do this. This is like, 80s shit. But so So talk to
That
your
was
partner
awesome.
about this, right? Like so choosing your heroes, like who do you look up to? Like there has to be someone that you look up to when you want inspiration or you get inspired by. Whether that's a world leader or a president, whoever that is. If you're inspired by that person, then there is something to gain from that. Rather than making this comparison and hurting your partner by making that comparison. Well, he's like that and he's not like this. Like, no, but you can approach this very intelligently. Let's talk about this. What do you feel? Who inspires you? How can we, influence that inspiration? So stuff like that, rather than trying to compare and make it something negative. For me, comparison always has to come out as inspiration and positivity.
Right.
You see?
The
So yeah,
I
go ahead.
used to be envious. I'm not envious of people anymore. I am just happy that they're there. I feel inspired by them. That's my frequency.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I don't care to be envious of people,
and that's totally fine.
because I then that's still living in lack. And at this
The
point, I'm
lack of,
training myself to not live
but
in
that's
lack.
another topic, maybe for part two episode.
100%.
Yeah,
No, but I think going back to what you were saying, it's just
yeah,
relationships require work. They require all these skills. Like one of the skills that
absolutely.
we did as a part of our healing journey, like we started doing 5-to-1 deposits, as in five good things that we appreciate about each other in our emotional love account. A lot of women
Mhm.
will also say to me, my partner, or men too, that my partner is not emotional. Well, if you keep emphasizing, how does that feel? I'll give you a
But what's
quick
the
tip of
definition
what
of
that feels.
emotion?
Right? Wait.
Yeah.
They
Mm-hmm.
don't express their emotions. They are not empathizing like this. They are not supportive
Mm-hmm.
like this. But if you keep focusing on what is lacking, if you keep focusing on what is not there,
Exactly.
then that's what you're creating more of. I didn't keep focusing on that.
Absolutely.
If I didn't like something, I fixed it within me, and then and then I voiced it to you nicely, gently, yin energy, like, hey, I'm thinking of this, right? Like that's how we started repairing.
Yeah,
After every fight, we started
and I
repairing.
can
Like,
listen
hey,
to that.
you know what? After
No,
every fight, we
yeah, I
started.
can listen. It's like the dreaded word every man hates. Is like, we need to talk.
There's a way that we change that. In,
Okay,
in
so
relationship coaching, I
you
say,
think I'm gonna listen to that? We need to talk. Like that's showing me the door, dude. Like disappear. Don't show up for a day. Now
I'm in
that can
trouble.
actually that can be addressed extremely different. Rather than we need to talk, find a time when your partner, unless if they're very,
We call this a
constitutive,
couples dialogue at this
that's
point.
fine.
That I
Yeah,
want to have a couples dialogue, and there is a whole in imago
yeah,
therapy. There is a whole thing like in coaching. I teach
exactly.
this to people where it's like, Amit, I would like to have a couples dialogue with you. When do you have time? So not to have that dialogue when he's about to walk into a most important meeting of his life, or when he's tired and had a very stressful day. But I would like to have a couples dialogue. When would you like to do it? When is a good time? And that gives him autonomy to give me a good time, right? Like, would right?
Yeah, or
Didn't
the
that work
best
better for
part,
you? Hmm.
and the best part, I think maybe for us it's different because we have sort of like blended ourselves into this. It's like when we go to bed, when we're now relaxed. lights are turned off, and we're talking 5 minutes, whatever, before we fall asleep. And we just get into these conversations. They are not texting conversations, but like they're just these little conversations. To me, I'm very receptive at that time because I'm totally relaxed, you by my side, and I'm like, okay, cool. What are we talking about?
But
Rather
see, those
than,
conversations are different than
I
actual,
know,
like, I don't like having conflictual conversations before bed. I just don't, because then I don't want to
well,
go
I
to bed
disagree. See,
with
because
that in my subconscious. And I don't want to have like a, okay, let's repair after a fight right before bed. We don't do
oh, no,
that.
no, no, I'm not talking about repair. I'm just talking about general
So the couple's
conversation. Like, hey,
dialogue is about
yeah,
repairing after, like, I want to
yeah,
have this important conversation. Let's work it out. Let's repair. Most people don't repair in conflicts, and thus
and
they
let it
take
just slide
fights
through.
that happened 15 years ago still into today because they never
Yeah,
were
so,
repaired. There was no connection. There was no what
but
did
I'm
we learn from
talking,
it. There was no
yeah, I'm talking
healing our
from men's
emotions.
perspective and how they perceive, right? Like,
Right.
let's say I'm sitting here, I'm playing a video game, or I'm watching a game on the TV. You're pissed, you come from behind and you're like, hmm, now I'm so pissed. He just hasn't given me any time today. He's watching games like full on every day, blah, blah, blah. We need to talk. That's not going to land, man. That would be
So you
more of a
suggest
like,
doing that before bed? I
not
wouldn't
before
do that
bed. Like
before bed.
everybody, I think it's different, right? You have to
That.
find that, that space that like, okay, is he smiling a little bit? Do you think he's relaxed? Like you would be that person to actually determine in what space your partner is, right? And then you can approach. Maybe that's by hugging, him or her from behind, kissing them on the cheek. Hey, you think we can now talk like blah blah, but this is how I feel, right? And I think that lends more rather than we need to talk. It's just like, my reptilian spine is just like shooting up.
About to blow up. Beep,
Threat,
beep, trauma response. No nervous
yeah,
system
threat.
regulation.
So
You're ready to
yeah, so
fight.
I think the words that we choose as well um, make a huge impact.
100%. Some words are
Yeah,
very triggering, whereas some words are
yeah,
very soothing. And communication and learning those skills, learning how to fight right. Like, one of the things that I learned through our experience was nervous system regulation. When we are stressed, when we are in our trauma responses, when we are in our stress responses, the fight, flight, fright, or people pleasing, that's not a good time to talk. Like, we have to heal
no,
ourselves. We have to work through our emotions and then show up and say when is a good time to talk. Because I would like to address some things that are on my mind in that tone. When I used to be like, I need to talk, you're like, oh,
uh,
hell no. Absolutely
you
not
will
available
not
for
talk to
that.
me for a day now. I was willing, but not anymore.
Yin energy, yang energy, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment. And that took
Yeah, so
work to
you
get
have
to.
to
And
allow space.
the third phase is the secure and the acceptance phase where we're like, oh, yay, like we have like maybe 3 fights a year as opposed to 3 fights in a week, right? But that
I think the
required a
even
lot of inner
more,
work.
yeah, and I think the more um, uh, texting thing, I think becomes the apologizing or forgiveness one, right? It's
Yes.
like you fight, and then you're like, okay, do I go and say I'm sorry, or do you go and say I'm sorry?
I never used to
You
say
know?
sorry, by the way. Sorry was not
Yeah,
available to me in relationships. I had
yeah. I had
such
to
pride,
ask
so
you. I'm
much
like,
ego.
yeah. How
Do you
come you
ever
never
say
say
sorry?
sorry? It's
No,
like
I was never
it's
modeled
your
it.
fault.
What do you
Say
mean
sorry.
sorry? And now my life has entirely become that. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. But thank you for teaching me that. Like, that was so
I don't
awesome.
think I taught you that. I think you
You
probably
did.
realized. Okay, well, I'll take
You
the
even teach
compliment.
it to Avik. You know why? Because
I
you're
do,
like,
I do.
hello, I want a sorry. And you would ask for a sorry. That's called healthy
Yeah,
boundaries.
yep.
Um, we would just, and it's like you want a sorry, but you don't go and ask for it, and you expect your partner to mind read. That's called
No, mind
Manippian,
reading doesn't
suppressed
work.
voice. Go
You
and
have
talk
to
to your
express.
partner about your
Absolutely.
needs.
And the same thing for gratitude, right? Like you, wherever you go, like whether it's a restaurant or grocery store or something, like people, like they interact with each other and they say sorry, they say thank you, like, hey, somebody packed my bag. Okay, thank you very much.
But we don't do that with the
Why?
people we love.
So that's what I'm trying to say. It's like it really helps when somebody hears, hey, thank you for doing my laundry. Yesterday I was so busy and I couldn't do it, but thank you for doing it. That
We live that
actually goes
now.
a long way. Imagine your kid hearing.
Yeah.
So we're modeling, not only we're actually helping ourselves, our partners, but we're modeling these kids that we are raising. And for them to see that, that actually it helps them to realize that okay, my parents are saying these things. So maybe this is the norm. Sorry, thank you. How are you? You're my elder. Like, all the respect, right? And so I think it's very important that we keep saying these words like at least once a day. You have to use sorry. You have to use thank you. I don't know how, but you
Change your
still do.
beliefs if you don't
Whether
believe
it's
in that.
work, whether it's at home, we always use it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It took us a while to get here. It took us a lot of practice to
But
get
it's
here.
work, and you have to work as
100%.
as a team, and you have to work as an individual. That's
Yes.
just how it is. What kind of work you do, that entirely depends on you.
And one of the things I want to mention here, like you didn't do all this work in the beginning, right? Like when we were in our conflict phase, because I know a lot of people will say, my
Yeah.
partner doesn't do all this work. I'm the one who does it. He doesn't believe in spiritual. Can you move a little this side?
Oh, sorry. So sorry, I
I
got
need you to be in the
comfortable.
center. Sorry. One of the things that I keep hearing from people is that they don't do all this work. Well, what we focus on grows. If we keep focusing on they don't do all this work, he's not emotional, he's this, he's that. What does it bring up in you? Heal that. What beliefs can you change? Heal that. What beliefs can you rewire? Because he didn't believe in all this either. Like when I did breath work and I was becoming a facilitator, and I'm like, Amit, will you breathe with me? You're like, absolutely not. Go find your friends, go find
Mhm.
your clients. He didn't. And now we're going on a meditation retreat together.
Yeah.
So
It's not that I
you
didn't
were not
believe in
this
it.
person.
Yeah. I think I was more perceptive of like, and again, maybe because I'm open-minded. So I'm like, okay, my wife is doing it. It's extremely beneficial, something new. Again, but I go back to like, our own teachings, like culturally speaking. Like is seeing that and
No,
now bringing back,
it's not culturally speaking, it's parenting. It's
well,
parenting,
it's
it's the
parenting as well,
perceptions
but
we
I
formed
said
early on in life,
spiritually,
it's what we
yeah.
were modeled by people.
Yeah. My
You
father
were
used to
modeled
do
by
it.
your
That's why
father
I'm
to say
realizing
sorry.
it
I
now.
was not modeled by my father to say
Yeah,
sorry. We just weren't. And
exactly.
nothing
Yeah.
against him. Love him to pieces.
Yeah. No,
And
no, but I was
we,
making a point of you like saying that, I wasn't into breathing and all that. But I'm
yeah,
saying
you
that it
weren't.
actually made relevance because my father used to do it. So it only made sense
But
when you put
later
it
it made
later.
relevance when I started
Correct.
doing the work. When
Yes,
I
that's
just
what
gave
I'm
up
saying.
on, like, just like the whole smoking thing. Like when I stopped
Yep.
nagging you about it, when I stopped pestering you about it, when I stopped making you want to do it, and I just
Yeah.
detached and I let it go, that he'll do it when he does. But in the meantime, I was doing all this work. Like I was visualizing that you do that. My affirmations were that, you know what, I love that my partner and I can do all this work together. I love that he's so open-minded. I
Absolutely.
love that he's so easily influenced. I love that he's trying all these amazing experiences with me. I became
And
the
my
embodiment of the change
realization,
that I wished to see. I
yeah,
wasn't like, he's not breathing. How many times am I saying to him, he's not listening. He just doesn't do all this work. What we think and what we believe is how we feel. I kept feeling
yeah,
defeated. I kept feeling victim. I kept self pitying. I kept feeling worried. What were we going to do for our son? I didn't want him to be on meds. I
very much.
wanted him to learn all these skills, and only we can model that to him. So I
Yeah,
had to heal those emotional patterns every day, do work, root cause of the issue. And that led
yeah,
to eventually you're like, hey, you do breath work. I'm more than happy to do it. Like you became open minded because I let it go. I loved you where you were.
yep,
I showed up
that.
exactly the way I wanted to do it. And then you were like, oh, yeah,
Because I didn't feel nagged, right? And I'm like, ooh, this looks good. Maybe I should just give it a try, right? And
that,
I'm like, okay, cool. And doing that, made me happy, made us happy, basically. And I'm like, this
yes,
is fun,
yes,
you know? And
that,
it could be anything, you can even go on a hike together. Like, you can even go and try new restaurants every weekend if that's your thing. Like, do something that make you both happy, makes your partner happy, and it's not like it shouldn't be forced. It shouldn't come as forced.
happiness is an inside job. I don't think like people do stuff, retail therapy, Instagram scrolling, eating, stress eating.
I
That's
don't know
not
what
called. People
Instagram
go
is.
do all that. Like you go to restaurants, but that doesn't make your relationship happy because inside you are not happy. I
No, I'm
am
saying
happy,
if it's
and
my
thus I
thing, that's
model
what I'm
happy.
saying.
You model happiness to me.
Yeah.
Like people do all this hiking and all this stuff, but that doesn't make the relationship concrete. That doesn't make the
Yeah, but
relationship
if one
intimate.
partner likes doing that, then I think the other
That
partner should be able. So that's my point. I'm not saying that would make them happy, but your thing, let's say it will make you happy if I breathe with
Yeah. No, it's
you.
not going to
Okay?
make me happy if you breathe with. No, I no. If
It does make you
I am
happy.
happy. No, I am happy. Happiness is my default state now because I've
Yeah,
trained
yeah.
myself to that. Because people, situation, crisis, and opportunities, 10Xs are patterns. Happiness is now my pattern. So when you do it, I feel, thank you. I attract more things to be
Yeah,
happy about. I
exactly.
attract more
Yeah,
things to be satisfied about. It
that is
doesn't, it adds to my happiness, but it doesn't make me happy. There's a
correct.
whole difference.
Yeah.
And I was just dissatisfied. So everything you did dissatisfied me even more because that was my
Yeah, so
pattern.
I saw that as nagging. I'm like, this is just
Right.
nagging, man, whatever. Like, I'm not, I don't have time for this, you know?
Right. So our emotional patterns attract more of what we want in our life. Like your emotional pattern was to be happy. That's why I married you. Like you were like, oh, I'm alive, so I'm happy. Easy conditions to be happy. For me, it was
Yeah.
like if I have this, and then I will be happy. That was that.
Okay,
Oh man,
so,
that was bad.
all right. I
That
think
was a
we're going
reframe that
over,
I
aren't
needed.
we?
Yes. So
We need part two.
I don't know yet. So thank you so much for
Well, my
everybody
pleasure.
that's
This was
watching.
fun.
Yes.
This was
Thank you so
so
much
cool.
for
Yeah,
doing
I think
this.
I,
I
I think
know
maybe we can do another, but we'll see. You can
for
let me
sure.
know like how it is,
Sure.
you know.
Thank you so
And
much for
yeah,
coming.
before I
Thank
think
you.
we part, I just want to wish everybody out there happy Mother's Day. Um,
Aw.
have fun and be healthy, be cool, love each other. Um, yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for doing this
I
with me.
love you.
Thank you for I love you more. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I truly
Yes.
appreciate it. And thank you for all of you that are watching this. I truly am grateful that you spent your hour with us. And let us know in the comments what you think. Let us know in the comments if you disagree with anything or agree with it. And if you learned something, one breakthrough that you learned today with us. If you don't subscribe to my channel, please feel free to subscribe and make comments. I always come back and look at it and give me a like if this episode resonated with you and share it with your friends and family. And thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much for being a part of my life. And I'm also going to post a link in if you want to do life coaching with me and learn all these skills, learn how to attract a better relationship, learn how to keep a relationship, learn how to heal, learn how to, do all the things that I did and I continue to teach and model to my community because again, we have to keep doing the work. We have to keep doing the work. We cannot expect things to change if we don't change. And I really am so grateful that I hope you learned something from this and I look forward to seeing you uh, in the future. Thank you, and have a fantastic
All
day.
right.
And
Thank
happy
you,
Mother's Day
everybody.
to all the awesome moms out there who are doing the best and doing all the things that they need to do to model the embodiment of the change that they wish to inspire in your families. Thank you.